This new possibility for collaboration is very powerful, but two things. The first is that it won't apply with equal power everywhere. And the second is that if it does apply with power, it's almost certainly going to bring some downsides as well as some upsides. And so it's important not to be sort of naive about that. As far as the limits go, I mean, even if you look in the media and cultural industries, which will be heavily affected and are being heavily affected, you can already see that it's happening at different paces. It's already affected youth magazines very heavily. So a lot of youth magazines have just gone out of business because of social networking. Sugar, 16, I mean the whole youth magazine portfolio of EMAP, the British magazine publisher, has just closed down. They've just gone out because of social networking. Because kids who used to go and buy youth magazines now socialise with one another on the web. Regional newspapers in the United States, the music recording industry, these have all been heavily affected. But television, it's probably going to take longer. I mean, I think it will be affected, is already being affected, but it's probably a longer process.
Why?
Because I think television is more ingrained in some ways, it's got more resources to fight with, it's still got some big assets to compete with, and it's got the opportunity to learn from the mistakes of other industries. So in other words, even within that sector, you could see that the story of how big the impact is, how quickly is going to be slightly different. If you then extend it and say, well, say in manufacturing industry, some things will change. All information bits of manufacturing industries I think will change, R&D will change, marketing, communications will change, but some aspects of manufacturing won't change. And there'll be some aspects of the economy, like human services, which I don't think will be that affected very much. Some aspects of those sort of personal services, where you see two things. I think one is, you can't change a nappy with a piece of software. And the second is that actually there's a sort of added value now, I think, being put on big, live, collective experiences as a sort of almost as a kind of reaction. So in the world of the web, where so much is more virtual and passing, actually one of the growth businesses in the UK entertainment industry anyway are big live events which people pay lots of money to go to. So whilst the direction of travel I think is towards this more participative open world, it's not going to be the same for all industries in all places, and not going to move as fast in every industry. Well, I think that I don't know what a generation means, but 10 years is not a very long time to build a business. So if you look at what happened to youth magazines, as I say, or music recording, it took 3 to 5 years for those businesses to collapse. And so it hasn't taken, I mean, how long has Google been around? 10 years? It's only taken 10 years for Google to emerge. So the warning is that if you think, there are two warnings in it. One is that if you think you've got a generation, actually a generation is well long enough for a bit of an industry to completely change and a new thing to emerge. The second warning is, let's imagine that it's like other technologies that took 50 or 60 years to really have an impact. So a lot of technologies actually take a long time before they really...
For instance?
I think the motor car, typewriter, actually electricity, the steam mill. All these technologies took quite a long time before they became really standard and became sort of dull, if you like. I mean, technology is really, really powerful when it becomes really dull and you just flip the switch. and the web isn't anywhere near that yet. So, so that might mean we have longer. It's going to take longer than people think. But if that's right, the first 10 years, which is what we've sort of had now, the first 10 years have brought the complete upheaval of music recording, the collapse of much of the US newspaper industry, the disappearance of all these youth magazines, and the emergence of all these new media companies. That's the first 10 years. So we've got 50 more years of that to come. That's the way to think about it. And it's going to gain momentum as more people join. It gets simpler, easier, quicker, all the rest of it. Actually, you know, there's just more of it to come. That's the way to think about it. You just have to break it down. I mean, you have to show people. I mean, the truth is that, as you know, as I said, my 8-year-old's going to be 18 in 10 years' time. You know, people are entering the workforce already who've started growing up with this stuff. Mm-hmm. They just will expect to work in this kind of way, and I think you have to show the real benefits of doing it. You have to focus on the outside world and how it's changing, and bring that in. And you have to lead by example, and work in that way. And it's it's fundamentally about trusting people to come up with ideas and take responsibility rather than having to control. Consumer innovation and consumer-led innovation works best when consumers are able to and have the incentive to innovate and can share their innovation with communities. And when you've got things which are very technical or costly or safety critical, then consumer innovation becomes more difficult. Mm-hmm. There's no doubt about that. But even in these most sort of banal areas like construction products, there's a huge amount of user innovation in construction products. Builders adapting things on site. I gave this example this morning of this woman who'd come to Procter & Gamble and innovated her own version of their diaper. Mm-hmm. Lego's experience was that Lego never really understood that it had all these adult fans. Mm-hmm. Suddenly it had, and it's got this entirely new kind of source of innovation, but also business models. More business, more economic activity in future will depend on this connection between collaboration, community and commerce, and how you build communities and commerce at the same time. And if you're dealing with people who, your customers, who want to partly be contributors and partly participants and certainly have a view and will want to be informed, and by the way, your workforce will be a bit like that as well, and they won't, they'll expect leaders to justify themselves and be more transparent and all the rest of it, then you're talking about an economy in which the way you make money is going to be much more informed by, if you like, there's a sense of kind of social accountability and community, I suspect. And one of the big challenges, really big challenges, I think, is how we regenerate public institutions. Mm-hmm. Because, looking back, it is the creation of the British Library and the British public library system and public universities, and it's a lot of this public infrastructure is critical to the development of society. And if that becomes old and tired and closed and cumbersome and unresponsive, then it's going to become less and less relevant to people. So it's very, very important to renew that sense of public purpose, it seems to me.